3 years of punishment. Finally over. Ethan arrived with his white moonlight to pick me up. He said, "I've heard you've learned your lesson. I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. Your sister, Grace, is gentle and refined. Learn from her. Don't cause any more trouble." Everyone thought I'd break down, beg for mercy, or cling to him like my life depended on it. But I simply bowed my head, lowered my eyes, and thanked him. Ethan frowned. "Anna, I'm your fiancé. There's no need to act so distant." I gave him a faint smile. Not for much longer. 3 years of grinding torment. I'd finally earned enough points. Just 10 more days. And I'd leave this world forever. From that moment forward, Anna and Ethan would part ways for good. I had just returned from the mountains, still wearing my tattered clothes, when someone came rushing to tell me to head to the field near the village entrance. More than 10 luxury cars were parked there, gleaming under the sun. At the front was Ethan's sleek black SUV. Before I got too close, I could hear their laughter and idle chatter. I stopped behind a tree, listening quietly. It's been 3 years. I wonder how our once pampered young lady is faring. Pampered? If Ethan's family hadn't taken her in, she'd be sleeping under a bridge. Anna was spoiled and reckless. A little hardship might have knocked some sense into her. A soft, familiar voice joined in. I recognized it instantly. It was Grace, Ethan's unfulfilled crush from his youth. After her divorce, she had returned and practically lived at his family's estate. 3 years ago, during a heated argument, I had accidentally injured Grace. Ethan had sent me to the mountains without hesitation. Before I left, he'd said, "If 3 years don't straighten you out, I'll make it 6. Or even 10. Anna, you're young but already so heartless. This punishment is for your own good. How else could you be worthy of becoming a member of the Carter family? For my own good? That's why you left me in an isolated village to fend for myself? Why you cut me off from the world and let the locals bully me? Why you left me penniless and without a single lifeline?" I wanted to laugh, but no sound came out. The mountain wind chilled me to the bone. My dry, brittle hair whipped around my face, sticking to my sunken cheeks like straw. At 22, my youthful features had already withered, my skin dull and lifeless. Grace wasn't wrong. What had happened 3 years ago was her mercy. She hadn't called the police. Otherwise, I might have ended up behind bars. Grace smiled sweetly, her voice soft as silk. I just didn't want to make things difficult for Ethan. After all, Anna is his fiancée. Her words seemed selfless, but her gaze lingered on Ethan, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "How do you think Anna will react when she sees Ethan?" someone teased. "She'll cry and beg, clinging to him like before. I'm sure." On the way here, I couldn't help but notice how poor this village is. Dirt roads everywhere. She must have had a rough time, given how spoiled she used to be. Ethan's voice was cold and indifferent. "I came personally to see if she's truly changed. If she hasn't, then what?" Ethan's tone darkened. "Then she'll stay for another 3 years. And your wedding plans?" Grace bit her lip, her eyes filled with nervous anticipation. "They'll have to wait." Ethan replied flatly. Disappointment flickered across Grace's face. But just then, someone spotted me. "Is that Anna?" "No way. That can't be her. But look at her necklace." Ethan's sharp gaze finally landed on me, stopping on the silver necklace I wore. It was the only possession I had kept when I was dragged out of his home. My mother's keepsake. For some reason, Ethan hadn't taken it away. "Anna." He called my name coldly, his tone devoid of any warmth. In the past, his indifference would have cut me to the core, igniting anger and jealousy. But now, I felt nothing. My heart was like an autumn leaf, brittle and lifeless. "Mr. Carter," I said, brushing back my hair and tucking it behind my ear. Ethan's frown deepened. "I heard you've learned to behave. Grace is kind and graceful. Learn from her. Don't cause trouble or make the family worry." I stayed silent, nodding slightly. Ethan's expression darkened further. He used to hate my fiery, talkative nature. But now that I was quiet, he seemed equally displeased. It didn't matter anymore. His approval meant nothing to me now. "What happened to your foot?" a young woman in the crowd asked suddenly. her voice tinged with shock and pity. I glanced down. Oh, during my first winter here. It was so cold I tried chopping wood. A log fell on my toe, and the nail never grew back. I shifted slightly, but my broken sandals couldn't hide my mangled foot. Why didn't you tell me? What happened to the money I sent? Why didn't you buy medicine? Ethan's voice grew harsh, tinged with anger. I didn't understand why he sounded upset. I only lowered my head further, hoping he'd calm down and take me back to the city. It's getting late. Let's head back, Ethan said, his voice calm yet commanding. As soon as the words left his lips, I bowed deeply. Mr. Carter. Thank you. My voice was steady but quiet, each word deliberate and clear. The air around us grew eerily still, broken only by the sharp whistle of the wind. The crowd of 20 or so people who had come along with him fell silent. Perhaps they were curious to see how 3 years had changed me. Perhaps they were here for the entertainment, expecting me to put on a pathetic display. Even Grace's normally composed expression faltered, her eyes widening in surprise. Ethan straightened slightly, but his face darkened in an instant. Anna, I'm your fiancé. You don't need to act so distant or put on this humble charade. I know you resent me for sending you here, but let's not forget who was at fault. Grace almost lost an eye because of your recklessness. I inhaled deeply, forcing myself to suppress the storm brewing inside me. My rough, callous palms pressed against each other, nails digging into the skin hard enough to leave marks. But I didn't respond. What was the point? In 10 days, I'd be gone from this world entirely. No words or actions from them could touch me anymore. The thought brought an unexpected wave of calm over me. I'm truly sorry for what happened back then, Miss Grace, I said, bowing again, this time even lower. Ethan's face turned stormy, his jaw clenching visibly. He stood motionless for a full 30 seconds before stepping forward and grabbing my wrist roughly. Anna, whatever you're planning in that head of yours, let me make one thing clear. If you ever harm Grace or her child again, there will be no mercy. I'll make your life even harder than it's already been. With that, he dragged me toward his SUV and shoved me into the back seat. I can take you back to the city, he muttered coldly, but I can just as easily send you right back here. I lifted my head and met his gaze, calm and unflinching. For the first time that day, I truly looked at him. In this strange world, I'd been orphaned at 3. The Carter family had taken me in, and I had treated them like my own family. When I grew older, I fell in love with Ethan. We became engaged. And then I watched as he brought Grace and her child into our home, treating them like the family I'd never have. I endured his favoritism, his cold indifference, and his blatant disdain. I cried, argued, begged, and even considered ending it all. But never, not once, did I think of harming Grace or her child. No one believed me, except for my adoptive mother. But by the time Ethan sent me away, she was gravely ill and powerless to defend me. Mr. Carter, I said softly, my voice calm, you have nothing to worry about. I won't make trouble anymore. I've changed. Maybe it was my broken demeanor. Maybe it was my miserable appearance. Whatever the reason, Ethan's icy expression seemed to thaw, just slightly. He even reached out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Anna, if you had been like this earlier, you wouldn't have had to endure 3 years of hardship. When we return, try to get along with Grace. Treat her like a sister, the way I do. I smiled faintly, the corners of my lips barely lifting. A sister? How laughable. Ethan ignored the edge in my tone, patting my head lightly. When we get back, clean yourself up. Don't let Mom see you like this. I lowered my lashes, nodding obediently. But Ethan's frown deepened as his hand brushed against my wind-chapped skin, the rough texture of my face. A far cry from the carefully groomed girl I used to be, seemed to catch him off guard. My bedroom had been given to Grace. My piano room had been turned into a playroom for her son. The entire second floor, once shared between Ethan and me, now belonged to them. A perfect little family of 3. Grace tugged at my sleeve, her voice laced with faux sincerity. Anna, I'll have the staff clear out the room right away. Please don't be upset. Okay, I can stay in the guest room. I pulled my arm away gently, heading for the stairs. I'll clean up before I see Mom. But Grace grabbed my arm again. Anna, are you mad? Don't worry. I'll tell Tommy to move his things out of the room right now. Why should I move out? A sharp, childish voice interrupted from the top of the stairs. Grace's son, Tommy, stomped down, his small face scrunched with indignation. Uncle Ethan said this is my house. I can live wherever I want. Tommy, sweetheart, don't say that, Grace began soothingly. But Tommy, in his frustration, grabbed a teacup from the nearby table and flung it toward me. The cup missed my face but slammed hard against my knee, sending a sharp jolt of pain up my leg. Grace bit her lip, hesitated, and then, with a shaky hand, slapped Tommy across the face. Uncle Ethan was just being polite. Did you really take it seriously? This isn't your home. It's Aunt Anna's home. You don't even have a home. Don't you know that? Grace's voice trembled as tears began to spill down her cheeks, her son clinging tightly to her side. When Ethan walked in, the first thing he saw was Grace and her son wrapped in each other's arms, crying bitterly. Uncle Ethan, are you going to kick Mom and me out? The boy whimpered. Who said that? Ethan's voice softened as he bent down to pick up the child. Uncle Ethan would never send you away. Then why do we have to move rooms just because she came back? Uncle Ethan, I don't want to live in the servants' quarters. Ethan's expression darkened. He turned to me, his voice sharp. Anna, why haven't you changed at all? You've just returned, and already the house is in turmoil. Can't you show a little compassion for Grace and her son? Grace lowered her head, her tears falling like scattered beads. Ethan, don't say that, she murmured, her voice soft and trembling. This is Anna's home. And yours. My son and I are just guests here. We know our place. Ethan's frown deepened as he looked back at me. No one's moving anywhere. Keep your room, he said, addressing Grace. This house is large enough. There's plenty of space for everyone. Then, turning to me with an edge in his tone, he added, Anna, if you have any complaints, take them up with me, but don't cause any trouble for Grace or her son. You know I won't tolerate it. I looked at Grace, who let out a soft sob, and then at the boy, whose tear-streaked face gleamed with smug satisfaction. Finally, I turned to Ethan. He seemed to expect me to argue, to cry or react like the woman I used to be. Instead, I met his gaze with quiet composure and even managed a faint smile. Fine. I don't mind. I'll stay wherever. Even the servants' quarters are fine. Without waiting for a response, I picked up my luggage and made my way upstairs. 10 days. That was all I needed to endure. Compared to the past 3 years, even the servants' quarters felt like a luxury. After cleaning myself up, I came downstairs, ready to visit Mrs. Carter in the hospital. To get to the garage, I had to walk through the garden. The golden light of the setting sun fell softly on the scene before me. Ethan was in the garden with Grace and her son. First, he was merely watching them play, but as I stepped outside, he moved closer to Grace, positioning himself behind her to adjust her grip on a racket. Your grip's all wrong, he said, his voice gentle. From where I stood, it looked as though he was embracing her. Grace's cheeks flushed slightly, and she glanced in my direction, her expression faintly provocative as she leaned back into Ethan's guidance. Am I too clumsy? Ethan? She asked softly. It's fine. I'll teach you, he replied, his tone warm. The boy suddenly clapped his hands, his voice breaking the moment. Uncle Ethan, you and Mom look just like a couple. Don't talk nonsense. Grace scolded gently, though her smile betrayed her amusement. I didn't linger to watch the scene unfold. With steady steps, I walked past them and toward the car. But just as I reached the garage, I paused, something tugging at my memory. Turning back, I glanced at the flower bed near the garden. The hibiscus flowers, Mrs. Carter's favorites, were still in full bloom. I decided to pick one to bring to her at the hospital. As I approached the flower bed, Grace suddenly grabbed her son and stepped behind Ethan, her expression one of exaggerated alarm. Ethan immediately stepped in front of them, his eyes narrowing. Anna, what are you trying to do now? I'm warning you. Stay away from them. Ignoring his outburst, I knelt by the flower bed, carefully selecting 2 of the finest hibiscus blooms. Without a word, I stood and walked away. Behind me, I didn't see the thoughtful frown that crossed Grace's face as she bit her lip, nor the way Ethan stared at me in silence, seemingly lost in thought. At the hospital, Mrs. Carter looked frail, her breathing shallow. The nurses had warned me she often struggled to recognize people these days. But the moment I entered, holding the hibiscus flowers, her eyes opened, and she smiled faintly. "Anna, you're here," she whispered. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry it took me so long to see you." She reached out a trembling hand, brushing her fingers across my face. "You've gotten so thin," she murmured, her voice tinged with sorrow. "Well, at least you don't have to diet anymore. But still, you should put on a little weight." She chuckled weakly before closing her eyes again, her strength fading quickly. I placed the flowers beside her bed and leaned in close. "Mom," I whispered, "when you're better, leave the Carter family. Divorce Ethan. Live the life you deserve. You don't need them anymore." Years of emotional turmoil had drained her, her health declining under the weight of Ethan's betrayal and the family he kept outside their marriage. "Before I leave this world, my last wish is for her to find freedom. 3 years of suffering had led me here, and I had endured it for 2 reasons. First, to earn enough points to return to my original world and reunite with the family waiting for me. Second, to gather the resources needed to heal my adoptive mother's broken body. Now, both goals were within reach. 9 days remain. I spent most of my days at the hospital. Mrs. Carter's health had begun to improve slowly, her moments of wakefulness stretching a bit longer each day. I rarely returned to the Carter household. On the rare occasions I did, it was usually to grab a few things. Each time, I saw Ethan laughing and playing with Grace and her son, a picture of familial harmony. 3 years ago, such scenes would have devastated me. The jealousy, pain, and helplessness would have consumed me. But now, those feelings no longer had a place in my heart. I felt nothing at all. After one such visit, I showered, changed into fresh clothes, and asked the kitchen staff to prepare some nourishing soup. As I prepared to return to the hospital, Ethan intercepted me. "I need to talk to you," he said. I glanced at him briefly and replied, "Go ahead." He hesitated, his gaze lingering on me. It had been 6 days since I'd returned. In that time, my complexion had improved noticeably. The meals I shared with Mrs. Carter at the hospital had helped me gain a few pounds, softening the hollow look I'd carried for years. My skin glowed faintly, and a recent haircut left me looking younger and refreshed, closer to my actual age of 22. "Mom says you've been doing well at the hospital," Ethan began. "She's proud of you. She thinks you've grown up, more mature, more understanding." He paused before continuing. "But the wedding will need to be postponed." He watched my face carefully as he added, "This has nothing to do with Grace." "All right," I said, cutting him off before he could explain further. "Do what you think is best." Ethan's surprise was evident, but I didn't give him a chance to dwell on it. I picked up my things and turned to leave. That parting would be our last. "Wait," he said, stepping in front of me again. His hand caught my wrist. "You're upset." "No, I'm not," I replied evenly. "I already said you can handle things however you like." I softened my tone deliberately, not wanting to prolong the exchange. "Brother, I'll listen to you." That single word, "brother," seemed to shake him for a moment. His grip on my wrist slackened, and his expression softened. "Anna," he said quietly, his hand lifting as though to ruffle my hair, just like he used to. But before he could, Grace's voice drifted down from the second floor. "Ethan, I've twisted my ankle. Can you come and look at it?" Ethan turned instinctively toward her call, and I seized the opportunity to leave without another word. Behind me, Grace's soft, pleading voice reached my ears again. "She's upset with me, isn't she?" I didn't mean to interrupt. "It just hurts so much that I couldn't help calling for you." "She's not upset," Ethan replied. "Sit down. I'll call a doctor to check on your ankle." I shook my head, brushing their voices aside as I walked out into the crisp autumn air. In just 4 days, I would be leaving for good. Ethan began showing up at the hospital more often, but Mrs. Carter, aware of my decision to leave, grew less pleased with his visits. Each time, she encouraged me to rest while he was there. making it clear she no longer wanted us spending time alone together. The evening before my departure, I planned to stay by her side through the night, but Ethan arrived once more. When he stepped out to speak with the doctors, Mrs. Carter took my hand, pulling me close for a private conversation. She stroked my face gently, her eyes misty. "Anna, take care of yourself," she whispered. "Mom will be fine here too." Her tears spilled over, and mine followed. Finally, like she had when I was a child, she pressed a kiss to my cheek. "Go, Anna," she said softly. "Never come back." I left the hospital room without looking back, unable to face her tears again. Returning to the Carter household, I methodically packed my belongings. There wasn't much to take. I chose only a few keepsakes, photos of Mrs. Carter and me, and the bracelet she gave me for my 18th birthday. Every photo of Ethan and me was torn to pieces and burned. Everything he'd given me was left untouched on my desk. I wanted nothing. At dawn, Ethan returned from the hospital, and chaos erupted. Grace burst into the living room, sobbing uncontrollably. "Ethan, please save my son. I beg you, save him," she cried, collapsing into his arms. "I know Anna resents me, but why take it out on my son? He's only 7. Why would she hurt him?" "What happened?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. "Tell me." "This morning, I gave my son some clothes. As soon as he put them on, he broke out in hives. His whole body is covered. The clothes were washed last night, but someone smeared seafood juice on them. The servant said Anna was the only one who went to the laundry room last night. She knows he's allergic to seafood. She did this 3 years ago too." By the time I came downstairs, Ethan's face was clouded with anger. 3 years ago, the boy had a severe allergic reaction to seafood. Back then, I was accused of causing it. I denied it, but the argument escalated. During the fight, I pushed Grace, and she conveniently hit her head on a table, narrowly avoiding serious injury. Ethan had sent me to the countryside in fury. Now, 3 years later, history seemed to repeat itself. The boy had another allergic reaction, and naturally, I was the prime suspect. This time, however, I didn't bother to defend myself. I didn't argue or make a scene. Instead, I watched Grace's theatrical performance unfold with a faint, detached smile. Ethan, however, was enraged by my demeanor. "Anna, do you have anything to say for yourself?" he demanded, his voice sharp. I shook my head. "No, I don't." "Is this because of the postponed wedding? Are you taking it out on Grace? Is that why you did this?" "No," I replied calmly. "Then it's just your true nature, isn't it?" he pressed, his words cutting. I met his gaze with a faint smile. "Think whatever you want. Ethan." "Anna, if something happens to my nephew, what will you do?" he challenged, his anger palpable. I let out a bitter laugh, my voice low. "Kill me? Send me back to that place again." My eyes, filled with quiet desolation, bore into his. "Does it even matter? You've never believed me," I said, my tone laced with resignation. "No matter what I say, you don't listen. You don't trust me, so there's nothing left for me to explain. The only way to prove my innocence now is this." Without another word, I picked up the fruit knife resting on the coffee table. "Anna, what are you doing?" Ethan's voice rose in alarm. I gave him one last look, my lips curving into a sorrowful smile. It was a smile born of years of familiarity, of moments that blurred the lines between family and something deeper. It needed no practice, it was real. A fragment of love I'd once held in my heart. Now, everything had shattered. The people, the memories, they had all transformed into something unrecognizable. This ending was inevitable, a conclusion my younger self could never have imagined. But at least, it was an end. There was nothing left to hold me back. The system had promised to block the pain. So, when I drove the knife into my chest, deep into my heart, I felt nothing. My body collapsed to the floor, and the pristine white of my dress blossomed with crimson flowers. A shocking and unforgettable sight. Around me, chaos erupted. I heard Ethan's anguished cries, frantic and broken. "Anna! Anna!" He pressed down on the wound, his hands shaking, desperately trying to stem the bleeding. But I felt myself slipping away. My body grew colder. my breath shallower. Grace stood frozen, her face pale, words caught in her throat. The household staff descended into pandemonium. Some called for help. Others shouted incoherently. One fainted on the spot. Then, amidst the chaos, a servant fell to her knees, trembling violently. "It was her," she cried, pointing at Grace with shaking hands. "She paid me to do it. She was behind it 3 years ago, too." Her voice cracked under the weight of her confession. Miss Anna was innocent. She didn't do anything. It was always this wicked woman, using even her own child as a pawn. Ethan turned to Grace, his expression darkening with fury and disbelief. Grace's composure crumbled. She stumbled backward, her face a mask of panic. "My son is upstairs," she screamed, scrambling toward the staircase. "Yes, he's allergic to seafood, but it's manageable." How was I supposed to know Anna would do something so extreme and ruin everything? Her shrill voice echoed through the room, but it was distant, irrelevant to me. I was beyond their chaos now. The malice they had sown had turned against them, and their drama would play out without me. The system's voice was calm. "Anna, do you want to leave now? Or stay to see the aftermath?" I shook my head, smiling faintly. "Let's go. I want to go home." I longed for the people waiting for me. My parents, who had always loved me, and Noah, my fiancé. The system had often told me how Noah's unwavering devotion had set him apart across countless worlds. And deep down, I had yearned to return to him, to leave behind the emptiness of this place and these people. Yes, my love and hatred for them had faded to nothing. I had no desire to witness the fallout of their actions. In the next moment, Anna Carter's lifeless body rested in Ethan's trembling arms, her final breath drawn. When I opened my eyes, a familiar silhouette stood by the window. The machines around me beeped rhythmically, grounding me in reality. The figure turned sharply, his body trembling as he saw me awake. "Noah," I whispered, my voice hoarse, tears spilling down my cheeks. His eyes held a kaleidoscope of emotions: relief, joy, disbelief, and sorrow that lingered like a shadow. Memories of our time together flooded my mind, and I knew without a doubt, I was finally back. I was home. For him. For my family. Those 2 years must have been an eternity. Yet for me, the time was brief, a fleeting detour. I reached out to him, overwhelmed with gratitude. I had returned to the love I never should have left. He once swore an oath before the heavens, promising to give up half his lifespan if it meant waking me from my coma. A long and healthy life, all for my sake. Yet, I had never been kind to him. From the day we were engaged at 18 until the accident when I was 21, I spent almost every moment trying to sever the bond between us. I despised the antiquated traditions that tied us together. I loathed his obsessive, almost suffocating love, and I hated the predictable, ordinary life that being with him seemed to promise. All of my resentment, all of my dissatisfaction, I directed squarely at Noah. I fought with him, ignored him, embarrassed him in public, and deliberately sought out things he hated, hoping he'd be the one to end it. But then the accident happened. The doctors said I'd never wake up. My parents begged Noah to leave me, to move on and live his life. But he refused. For 2 long years, he stayed by my side, caring for me with a devotion so steady, so unwavering, that even the system, a being devoid of emotion, found it remarkable. He did everything for me. I lay there, unconscious but always clean, always tended to, never neglected, not even for a moment. The system often reminded me that his love was unparalleled, that I had been given a rare second chance, and when I woke up, told me something I could not ignore. If I didn't treasure him now, I might not have longed to do so. I resolved then and there to make it up to Noah. I would marry him, become his wife, and give him the love he deserved. But as my recovery progressed, Noah suddenly came to me with a request I never anticipated. "Anna," he said, his voice soft yet resolute, "you've been unconscious for 2 years. And during that time, I had so many regrets." He adjusted his glasses, the light catching on the thin frames. But his gaze didn't meet mine. "I regretted not granting your wish to break off the engagement. If I had, you wouldn't have argued with me that night. You wouldn't have stormed out. And the accident, it wouldn't have happened. He held out a small box, one I recognized instantly. Inside were the tokens of our engagement. My eyes darted to his left hand. His ring finger was bare, though a faint mark remained where his ring had once been. I looked down at my own hand and realized I hadn't worn my ring since the engagement ceremony. A sharp ache settled in my chest, the weight of unspoken words filling my throat. But Noah continued, his voice steady despite the tremor beneath. Anna, you're still young. You shouldn't have to spend your life tied to someone you don't love. It wasn't fair of me to hold on to you when you didn't want me. His words were a dagger, cutting deeper than I thought possible. I'll be going now, he said, standing. Rest well. Recover fully. I won't be there to pick you up when you're discharged, but I hope you'll find the happiness you deserve. As he turned to leave, the light from the window cast his shadow across the room. He looked so tall, so steady, yet utterly alone. Tears blurred my vision as his figure began to fade. Noah, called out, my voice trembling. He froze but didn't turn back. Where is your ring? His body stiffened, his hand twitching as though to pull away. But I reached out, my fingers grazing his. Noah, I repeated, gripping his hand weakly. Where is your engagement ring? He turned slowly, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. It's in the box, he said hoarsely. Take it out, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Noah, take it out for me. He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. But eventually, he reached for the box. Carefully, he retrieved the ring and held it out to me. I took it in trembling hands, the weight of it heavier than I remembered. Noah, I said, meeting his eyes, give me your hand. He didn't move, his fingers curling into a loose fist. Anna, he whispered, you don't have to do this. Do what? You don't have to repay me out of gratitude. A bittersweet smile tugged at my lips. Do you really think that's the kind of person I am? His silence spoke volumes, his misted eyes betraying the hope he was too afraid to voice. Noah, I said softly, do you honestly think I'd spend my life with someone I didn't love just to repay a debt? His composure cracked. Then why? He asked, his voice raw and trembling. I also asked myself why. Why did my heart change? Why did my feelings for Noah shift so deeply? Perhaps the experiences in that other world taught me to cherish the people right in front of me. Or maybe the Anna of this world had loved Noah all along, but she was too young, too afraid, too uncertain of herself to recognize it. But the Anna standing here now knew. She knew her heart. She knew her feelings. I tilted my head to look up at him, my lips curving into a soft smile. All the pain, misunderstandings, and grievances of the past? They didn't need to be recounted to someone who had loved me unconditionally. Someone who had endured it all, even when it hurt him most. Noah, I began, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling within me. I had the longest, most vivid dream during these past 2 years. In that dream, we lived a lifetime together, a happy, peaceful life. And in that dream, I promised myself something. If I ever woke up, I would marry you, but only if you still wanted me, if you still wanted us. I gazed at him earnestly, waiting for his reply. Noah stood silent for what felt like an eternity. When he finally spoke, his words were careful, hesitant. Anna, he said softly, maybe after 2 years of sleep, you've forgotten how things were. When you remember who I really am, who I was, and you can still accept me, then we'll get married. The real Noah. The system had mentioned bits and pieces about him during my time in that other world. A man whose love for me ran so deep it bordered on obsession. Back then, my younger self had been overwhelmed by it. I'd wanted freedom, escape, a life unshackled from his intensity. I hadn't understood that Noah wasn't a villain in my story. He was simply a man whose love for me had consumed him completely. I remembered the first time I saw his private study. Photos of me lined the walls. From my childhood to adulthood, he had preserved every token of my existence. Glass marbles I played with, broken dolls from my youth, even the 18th birthday photo that had been enlarged into a poster and hung on the wall opposite his desk. But the most shocking item of all? A love letter I'd once written to another boy in high school. Noah, I'd asked him back then, horrified. Where did you even get this? He'd handed me a cup of tea, his expression calm yet expectant. Doesn't it make you angry? Don't you think I'm a freak? Don't you hate me more now? I'd stared at the letter in my hands, my mind reeling. At the time, I didn't hate it. I didn't find it freakish. I'd only felt an overwhelming wave of heartache. How had I never seen it before? How had I never realized how deeply Noah loved me? Back then, that kind of love had frightened me. But now, after living 2 lifetimes, I saw it for what it truly was. There's something I should tell you, Noah said suddenly, his voice steady but edged with a quiet sadness. When you insisted on ending the engagement years ago, I started seeing a doctor. I began taking medication. His words hung heavy in the air. And during the 2 years you were unconscious, my dosage doubled. He exhaled shakily, as if trying to steady himself. Anna, as you can see, I'm not normal. If you agree to stay with me but one day change your mind, I don't know what I'll do. I could hurt myself again. I don't want to be that kind of person. And if we ever have children, I don't want them to have a father like me. His confession left me speechless. He wasn't begging for sympathy. He wasn't asking for my forgiveness. He was giving me an out. I reached for his hand, feeling its slight tremble beneath my own. Can it be treated? I asked softly. Noah blinked, startled. Then he nodded, hesitantly. It can, he admitted. But, no buts. I interrupted, my voice firm. Tell me how to treat it. He stared at me, his breath catching in his throat. Stay with me, he whispered, his voice raw. Never leave me. His words hung in the air like a fragile thread, one that could snap with even the slightest hesitation. I didn't hesitate. Setting the teacup aside, I gently placed my hand over his, and then, leaning up on my toes, I kissed him softly. Noah, I murmured, pulling back just enough to meet his eyes. Let's get our marriage license tomorrow. After your death, Ethan uncovered many truths from the past, including a devastating revelation. For 3 years, you were controlled by Mr. Song. Even the financial support Ethan secretly sent you every few months was intercepted by Grace. The irony of it all still makes me laugh bitterly. But honestly, Grace isn't the sole culprit. If he had treated me as even half a sister, if he had shielded me even a little, no one would have had the chance to exploit or humiliate me. Yes, we all know the true villain here is him. Still, Ethan's fury erupted at Grace. He beat her so severely that Mr. Cruz had to intervene, only to be stabbed in the process. Grace hadn't been living at the Ethan estate for long before she got involved with him. She hoped to marry into the family openly, so she kept everything hidden. When Ethan discovered the truth, his rage was volcanic. He kicked both Grace and her son out of the house without a second thought. Oh, and speaking of Grace's son, remember how he had a severe allergic reaction to seafood that day? He didn't receive his medication in time, leading to throat swelling, oxygen deprivation, and suffocation. Although he survived, he has been in a coma ever since. The medical and rehabilitation costs are astronomical, yet Ethan refuses to pay a cent. Meanwhile, Grace's ex-husband, learning of their son's condition, has cut off all child support and is now suing to reclaim the property he gave Grace and her son. Grace's life is in complete ruins. Her reputation is in tatters, and even her closest friends and family avoid her now. The system sighed as if pitying her downfall. After a pause, I asked, You didn't come here just to tell me about Grace, did you? No, the system replied. It's about Ethan. What about him? After your death, Ethan lost his mind. The way you chose to leave, it broke him. He refused to bury you, sought out gods and mystics, and tried countless absurd methods to bring you back. In the end, he found us. I frowned. What does he want? He wants to see you, the system explained. There's no need, I replied flatly, but the system pressed on. He was willing to make a deal, offering everything he had, just to see you one more time. Hearing this, I thought of Noah. Your husband has an impeccable reputation with us, the system continued. None of us want his life to end prematurely. So, I made a decision. What decision? I had Ethan trade half of his remaining lifespan in exchange. The word startled me. But relief quickly replaced the shock. So, Noah can live a long life now. Yes, the system confirmed. But ultimately, it's your choice. Do you agree? I agree, I said without hesitation. In fact, if he could give all his remaining years to Noah, I'd be even happier. That's wonderful. When should we arrange for him to meet you? I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My complexion was radiant, glowing with the love and happiness Noah had brought into my life. Removing my pearl earrings, I replied, "Send him an invitation to our wedding tomorrow. He can attend as a guest. Oh, and remind him to bring a generous gift." The wedding was something Noah and I had carefully planned, deciding that instead of traditional gifts, we would host a charity auction. All proceeds would go to women and children in impoverished areas. As for Ethan, he meant nothing to me now, but if he still had some use, I wouldn't hesitate to make the most of it. The ceremony was beautiful. My parents walked me down the aisle, their eyes glistening with tears. For a brief moment, my own vision blurred with emotion. When Noah took my hand, I noticed the jade bracelet on his wrist. It was a symbol of the love and care he had shown me, a reminder that the life I now cherished was entirely with him. Somewhere among the guests, I knew Ethan was seated, but I didn't care to look for him. This day was for Noah and me. After exchanging rings, we shared a kiss that sealed our vows. A small commotion rippled through the crowd, but it quickly subsided. Neither Noah nor I spared the guests a glance. This moment was ours alone. Later, as we drove away to our wedding suite, a black sedan silently followed us. I knew it was Ethan, though Noah remained oblivious. Still, Noah's sensitivity to my moods made him tense. His hand, clasping mine, tightened as the car sped on. "Noah, what's wrong?" I asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled me close, holding me as though afraid I might disappear. "Anna," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "I feel like I'm dreaming." There was a flicker of unease in his gaze, as though he feared waking to find this happiness gone. I smiled, looping my arms around his neck. Without another word, kissed him, letting my love speak louder than any reassurance could. "Noah," I whispered, "stop overthinking. I'm yours. Always." Kissed him, clumsy yet eager, letting my feelings pour out in a way words never could. When we finally pulled apart, my breath hitched as I looked at him. "After tonight, you won't be able to leave me," I whispered, my voice trembling with conviction, "because I'll cling to you for a lifetime." Noah's gaze softened under the flickering glow of the dim light. He stared at me for what felt like an eternity before his lips curved into a tender smile. "Anna," he said, his voice steady and warm, "I accept this wholeheartedly." That night, the black sedan parked outside our villa remained unmoving, shrouded in the night like a silent ghost. I neither acknowledged Ethan's presence nor allowed any of the staff to let him in. Inside, the light in our bedroom stayed on until nearly 2 a.m. Noah and I basked in the quiet intimacy of our shared space. Every word unspoken yet perfectly understood. At one point, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, pressing my forehead against the cold glass. But instead of the chill, I felt Noah's warm palm. My skin touched the faint scar etched in the center of his hand, one of many that marked his arms. I didn't ask about them. Instead, I kissed each one softly, reverently. Noah pulled me into his embrace, his chest firm against my back. He leaned down, his breath hot against the curve of my neck. "Anna," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. I trembled under his touch, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration I had never known before. "Noah," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He stilled for a moment, then asked in a low, teasing voice, "What should you call me now?" His question sent a fresh wave of heat through me, leaving me breathless. "Husband," I murmured, the word slipping out between shallow breaths. "Dear husband." He smiled against my skin and whispered, "Forever." "Yes," I answered without hesitation. Ethan's perspective, the entity calling itself the system, kept its word. It allowed me to see Anna again, but only from a distance. At the wedding, I sat at the very back, hidden among the sea of guests. From there, I watched as Anna, radiant in her white gown, walked down the aisle, her parents on either side. Her tears shimmered like jewels, and even in sadness, she was breathtaking. Her husband's gaze never left her, not for a single second. He adored her. That much was painfully clear. I managed to hold myself together through the ceremony, but when the groom kissed her, I lost all composure. The glass in my hand shattered, shards embedding themselves into my palm. Blood spilled freely, yet I barely felt the pain. There was a brief stir among the nearby guests, but the moment passed quickly. Anna didn't even glance in my direction. After the reception, I followed their car all the way to their villa. I stayed outside, watching the light in their bedroom window burn late into the night. I didn't see her again. As the hours dragged on, I felt nothing but numbness. My mind replayed memories of Anna over and over. How she had lived in the Ethan household since she was 3. How she had once clung to me with so much trust. But now, those memories felt like a cruel joke. The last time I held her, her body was lifeless, her white dress soaked in blood. I didn't understand why I had treated her the way I did in those final years. Why I had believed Grace's lies. Why I had sent Anna away and abandoned her to suffer alone. Had I visited her even once, I might have uncovered the truth. Perhaps I could have stopped the tragedy, but I didn't. Now, every sleepless night is filled with regret and self-loathing. When I came to this place, I donated everything I could. It was the least I could do for Anna, someone who had endured so much because of me. As dawn broke, I knew it was time to leave. The fog was heavy as I drove back, the weight in my chest suffocating. Through the haze, a car suddenly appeared, speeding recklessly toward me. Behind the wheel, I saw Grace's face, wild, desperate. Beside her, her son's comatose form was strapped into the passenger seat. For a moment, instinct told me to swerve, but I didn't. The collision was deafening, a burst of pain so intense it eclipsed everything. And then silence. As the flames engulfed the wreckage, my last thoughts drifted back to Anna. In my mind's eye, she was 3 years old again, peeking shyly from behind our mother. Brother. She had called me for the first time, her tiny hand reaching out. I had taken her hand then, holding it firmly in mine. This time, I thought as the darkness closed in, I won't let go.